Bill Mummy's heart was heavy when he learned that June Lockhart, the woman who had played his television mother and later became one of his dearest friends, had died at the age of 100. For millions, she was America's mom, the calm, graceful Dr. Maureen Robinson in Lost in Space, or the devoted mother in Lassie. But to Mummy, she was more than an icon. She was warmth, wit, and wisdom personified, someone who had quietly shaped his childhood and his career. On October 25, 2025, just 2 days after her death, Mummy shared his grief on Instagram. He posted an old photo from the Lost in Space set and wrote, "Goodbye to the brilliant June Lockhart, a one-of-a-kind, talented, nurturing, adventurous, and non-compromising lady. She did it her way. June will always be one of my very favorite moms. 100 years here. Wow. R.I.P." It was a short message, but those few words carried 60 years of memories. For Mummy, Lockhart had been like family since 1965, when Lost in Space first began filming. He was a curious, energetic 12-year-old. She was already a respected Hollywood veteran. On screen, she played his mother guiding a family of space explorers. Off-screen, she was the same, patient, funny, and protective. She became a mentor and role model who set the tone for everyone on set. Their connection lasted long after the show ended in 1968. They reunited for cast events, interviews, and anniversaries, and Mummy always referred to her fondly as his TV mom. To him, she was not just a colleague, but a constant. He admired her grace, her intellect, and above all, her spirit. When she turned 100 in June 2025, Mummy celebrated her publicly, posting, "Happy 100th birthday to the mighty June Lockhart. What a gal! She is truly special." Only a few months later, he would be mourning her loss. Lockhart's death marked the end of an era in television. She was one of the few surviving stars who had bridged Hollywood's golden age, from black and white films to color TV. She had worked alongside legends, won awards, and built a reputation as one of the industry's most beloved mothers. Yet, behind that image of wholesome perfection was a woman full of surprises, someone who loved rebellion just as much as responsibility. Mummy often described her as a rock and roll goddess. To those who remembered her from Lassie or Petticoat Junction, that label sounded almost unbelievable. But the woman he knew was nothing like the matronly figures she portrayed. "She was enamored with David Bowie," Mummy once said, laughing. "She's a real rock and roll gal. She loves rock and roll bad boys." He meant it literally. In the 1980s, Lockhart carried a photo of Bowie in her wallet. In the late 1960s, she hired the Allman Brothers, then known as Hourglass, to play a party at her home. She even took Mummy and his co-star Angela Cartwright to the Whiskey A Go-Go in Hollywood to hang out with the band. For a young actor, it was unforgettable. "She was a character," Mummy recalled, "and she lived for music." That mix of intellect and wild energy was what made June Lockhart so unique. She could quote Shakespeare one moment and hum a Rolling Stones riff the next. She was fiercely intelligent, endlessly curious, and utterly unapologetic about her interests. Mummy often said she refused to be ordinary. She believed that life should be lived with both discipline and joy, and she inspired everyone around her to do the same. Even as she aged, Lockhart's independence never wavered. Earlier in 2025, Mummy told Remind magazine that he still received updates from her daughter. "June is at home," he said proudly. "She has 2 assistants. She follows politics, she reads the news, but she doesn't go out anymore. She's fine." His voice in that interview carried deep affection. He admired that she remained in her own home, alert and aware, still doing things her way. Her passing in Santa Monica was peaceful, but it hit Mummy hard. He had known it would come, after all, she was 100. But knowing doesn't soften the loss. To him, she had always seemed timeless, someone who belonged to every decade. The world had changed beyond recognition since their Lost in Space days, but she remained the same mix of grace and fire that first captivated him. The tributes that followed were many. Fans posted clips from the show, old interviews, and magazine covers. But Mumi's simple message stood out because it came from the heart. There was no performance in his grief, just love and respect. People could feel that this was not a typical Hollywood farewell. This was a son mourning his second mother. On Lost in Space, Lockhart's character had been the voice of reason, the scientist who kept her family grounded amid chaos. Off-screen, she played a similar role. Mumi often credited her with teaching him how to behave professionally on set. She expected excellence from everyone, no matter their age. She treated me like a colleague, not a kid, he once said. That's something I'll never forget. Her influence shaped him long after the show. As he grew older and moved into music, writing, and voice acting, Mumi carried her lessons with him: discipline, kindness, and an appreciation for authenticity. Lockhart's belief that creativity and responsibility could coexist became a model for his own life. For many, her passing symbolized more than the loss of a single actress. It felt like saying goodbye to an entire generation of television. June Lockhart had witnessed every transformation in entertainment, from radio dramas to streaming services, and adapted with grace. She had seen Hollywood's brightest lights rise and fade, yet she never lost her humor or curiosity. She represented continuity in a business that rarely allows it. Mumi, reflecting on her legacy, often reminded fans that Lost in Space was more than a show. It was a symbol of hope. Set in an era when people truly believed humanity could reach the stars, it carried optimism and innocence. Lockhart embodied that perfectly. As Dr. Maureen Robinson, she was a scientist, a mother, and a moral compass at a time when few women were shown leading with intellect on screen. For many viewers, she became a role model long before anyone used that term. Even in later interviews, she spoke with enthusiasm about the importance of imagination and scientific curiosity. She loved that Lost in Space inspired generations of engineers and dreamers. Her combination of intellect and compassion reflected not only in her roles, but in how she treated people around her. When Mumi looks back now, he remembers laughter first. Lockhart's sense of humor was sharp and mischievous. During reunions, she teased him for growing up too fast, while he joked that she still looked ready for another intergalactic adventure. Their bond was filled with that kind of affectionate teasing, a warmth that could only come from years of shared experience. In 2013, during a Television Academy interview, Mumi had called her a rock and roll goddess, with genuine admiration. "She lives for rock and roll," he said, smiling. That remark, once playful, now feels prophetic. It captured her vitality better than any obituary could. She loved life loudly. Even at 100, she remained spirited, opinionated, and full of charm. Her passing left Mumi reflective. He didn't give long TV interviews or emotional videos. Instead, he let silence and a few heartfelt words speak for him. "She did it her way," he wrote, and that line said everything. It captured the essence of a woman who had lived on her own terms, who balanced elegance with rebellion, and who remained true to herself across 10 decades. June Lockhart's century-long journey was extraordinary. From Lassie to Lost in Space, from the silver screen to color television, she brought strength and humanity to every role. She had a gift for making audiences believe in goodness, in possibility, in love that endures even across galaxies. Bill Mumi's grief is also gratitude. He knows how lucky he was to have shared a part of his life with her, to have learned from her and laughed with her. The world remembers her as the perfect TV mother, but he remembers her as something greater, a woman who encouraged him to dream, to stay curious, and to never lose his sense of wonder. For him, saying goodbye wasn't final. It was a salute to the woman who once took him to the Whiskey A Go-Go, who danced to David Bowie, who laughed like no one else, and who brought humanity to a fictional family drifting among the stars. Even now, when Moomy sees reruns of Lost in space, he doesn't just see himself as young Will Robinson. He sees June, smiling, composed, radiant, and remembers that behind every line they delivered, there was genuine affection. She wasn't acting when she looked at him with warmth. She really cared. And that, above all, is what made her unforgettable. June Lockhart lived her life the way she played her roles, with intelligence, humor, and unshakable heart. And Bill Mumy, her lifelong friend and TV son, will keep her spirit alive in every memory he shares. For him, she'll forever be the mighty June Lockhart, his mom in the stars,